I'm not quite sure when the next council meeting is expected to take place, and I'm not quite sure, to be honest, if a motion of no confidence in the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Stellenbosch will succeed. There are certain grounds for a motion like this, so we'll have to wait and see. But I'm also not convinced that a motion of no confidence in the Vice-Chancellor would be a proper solution to the problem that we see at the University of Stellenbosch, because it's a institution-wide problem, it's an endemic problem, and I'm not sure that removing the Vice-Chancellor would properly address this problem.
Okay, hold the thought, and we'll get to when you say it's an institution-wide problem. So I understand that the motion is being brought in terms of paragraph 42 of the Stellenbosch University statute over these serious violations of law as confirmed by the South African Human Rights Commission. Now, firstly, when did this come to light? Was it only brought to your attention by the Human Rights Commission report following complaints? Just give us a bit of background and why, because I want you to expand a little bit more when you say you doubt the prospects of success of this motion of no confidence.
Well, you mentioned section 42(3) of the statute, and that specifically states that a motion of no confidence can be brought on the basis of serious misconduct, serious contravention of the law, incapacity, failure to comply with operational requirements. So I'm not sure how my colleague in Parliament, Dr. Schreiber from the DA, formulated the motion of no confidence that he requested from the chairperson of the Council of the University. But I think with regards to the report from the SA Human Rights Commission, it can be construed that it falls within some of those grounds that has been set out in section 42(3). But as I said, if it should fail, then this is still a problem that should be addressed within the institution.
So, and I want to stick with this for a moment. The Human Rights Commission finding that the university, through its residence policy, unfairly violated the human and cultural rights of students, finding that through the complaints of students, the university was being that the students were being prevented from communicating in Afrikaans. Is this something that has been a policy for a long time? Was it a one-time thing? Is it a written policy? And for a university, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that is known to be largely white and Afrikaans speaking in terms of its patronage, can you just talk us through this?
Tipiso, there's a lot of talk around the language policy of the University of Stellenbosch. There was a language policy in 2016 which was reviewed and which was accepted at the university by council in 2021, which changed some of the aspects of the 2016 language policy to be more inclusive of other languages. Now, the university denies that there are any residence language policies that states that residents should only use one certain language, like English, for instance. And that's why I hope I'm not taking this a step too fast, but that's why I refer to a systemic problem and an institution-wide problem, because students are under the impression that the language policy and that it is their responsibility to marginalize other languages in favor of English through or while trying to be inclusive, but they are actually doing the exact opposite.
And in the past, we've heard the converse of black students complaining that they're being taught only in Afrikaans, even though it's not a medium of instruction that they're familiar with from the educational history that they've had. And I mean, obviously this also has a very troubling historical reference if you look at it. So when you say it's an institution-wide problem, is that across races? Is it across, generations as well?
So I think the reason why it's an institution-wide problem is exactly that, where you say that Black students in the past have been complaining that they were taught only in Afrikaans. The language policy has been reviewed, and the language policy, for instance, refers to where practicably reasonable and possible. And that's exactly what I mean when I say it should be practically possible, but where students are in residences, in their own space, in their own rooms, they can't be forced to, for the sake of inclusivity, be marginalized with regards to their home language, even if it is Afrikaans or isiXhosa or Sesotho or whatever. Students have to feel like they belong there so they can be inclusive in open spaces where they need to be.
So just as a Freedom Front Plus, what can you tell us about your stance and what you think, because you say you don't think it will resolve the issue, what would?
So I think what would resolve the issue is a change of institutional culture, where students, and it doesn't matter what language they speak, feel accepted and feel welcome and feel they are able to speak their languages, their mother tongue, in whatever setup. Of course, we have to have mutual respect for each other. If someone comes into a conversation where people are speaking Afrikaans, for instance, and that person does not understand Afrikaans, we have to have mutual respect and include that person. But we cannot have rules that are forced down on students, that make students feel uncomfortable, because that obtains the exact opposite. Then it's not inclusive, it's not mutual respect, and we have to take that into cognizance.
All right. What will your next step be in light of this, should I say, avowal threat for a motion of no confidence?
Well, we'll have to see what happens during the next council meeting, but I must say we are very underwhelmed by the response from the University of Stellenbosch. They, for instance, say, and if I can just read here, many positive actions aligned with the remedial actions recommended by the Commission have already been undertaken, such as emphasizing that in the spirit of multilingualism, there should be no prohibition on the use of language, including Afrikaans. Now, they say that it's been done since 2021, but we saw almost the same incidents taking place at the beginning of this year in 2023, again during the period when first years arrived on campus and everything. So if these remedial actions aligned with these recommendations have been taken, why are we seeing the same things? And that's proof that this is a problem that's wider than only the management of the university, but it has to start with the management. So certainly, if a motion of no confidence would succeed in the Vice-Chancellor, it would send a message, but it wouldn't solve the problem. It's a problem that has to be addressed from management down to ground level.